I'm hitting record.
Yay! All right, we're recording. Sweet. All
What's
right,
up?
so a couple things to catch up on, basically. Like, I want to know what you've been doing training wise. I feel like this is also going to be pressure for us to keep up with our training, but I don't think we need much pressure to keep up with our training, so I don't feel like it's going to be that much pressure. But if I'm wrong, let me know. Excuse
No,
me.
this is the perfect amount of pressure that I need to keep up with my training.
Okay, sweet, sweet.
Yeah,
So I saw you playing with the sandbag recently. How's that going?
it's going great. So it's a little update from last week. And so last week I was talking a lot how the sandbag and yoga makes me feel really strong in weird positions, you know.
Right.
And so this week I did a new test of a weird position is that I didn't use the handles on like the 60-pound sandbag. So
Right.
if no one's ever seen that, it's just like about a 2 foot long bag that's like
Duffel bag.
yeah, like a foot in diameter or so. um
Hmm.
and so anyway, so I tried to do the four basic movement patterns without the handles. And so a couple of things it taught me is that even to just a grip like a sandbag that's super heavy, I mean, like open hand strength is much different than like a closed grip around a barbell.
Yeah.
And the way everything moves and activates, especially like in a deadlift position when you're trying to do a row or something like that. My little things like my reach was shortened at
Hmm.
the end range because like I couldn't extend my arms all the way. Is something that I really had to work on, like rolling my shoulders through and which is like a kind of like one of those things that's
Like a
debate.
no. Yeah, yeah, in typical circles. Yeah.
Yeah, like because some people really like that, some people don't, but I had to do that to even get good form. And then things like sweat really played a factor because I could barely hold on to it when it came to like the third set. And just think if you're doing like an overhead press with like nothing to grip, it's a little scary. Like, so I would like what I put on my video. It's like I really recommend you have good hand-eye coordination if you're not using handles because like it's a little sketchy.
Yeah, get good with handles first and then work on no handles, basically.
Exactly, but everything's different, like how you move. I just feel like it's more realistic. And
Do you
then
have chalk? Do you have chalk right now?
I don't ever try and use that stuff, even though I know it has its role.
Is it going to be available at the competition you do, the chalk? Do you know?
No, I don't know anything about it.
Hmm.
And so, but I'm sure it will be.
I feel like a lot of those use chalk and whatnot.
Yeah, well, this is like I've said, this is like very amateur.
I know, I know.
Like yeah, so but last year I'm pretty sure some of them had chalk. Like two people got hurt during the event, like lifting like a 300 pound like a tire and stuff. So I
Mhm.
don't think it's overly trained. I think it's just a fun thing to do.
Right, like a community strongman event, basically.
Yep, exactly.
I like that a lot. I said that before, though. I like that a lot.
What's going on, like, so that's pretty much with my training. I'm focusing on 2 days of sandbag and then 1 day of a full body barbell. And then in between those days I do like accessory lifts, like some bicep curls, tricep extensions, little things like hamstring curl on the Swiss ball on my in between days, but
Mm.
only for like 3 to 5 minutes or so.
Mhm.
And then for me, I'd have to do mobility every day, so that's an everyday thing.
Yeah, I have to do mobility every. I pretty much start every day with mobility, and then we see where it goes from there. I would say. I think I showed you when you came over and visited recently. I've been Jazz bought me those head wrap reflex ball boxing training things with the
Yes.
rubber. It's like a you put a headband on, and it's got a rubber band esque string, a very elastic string attached to it. And it's got the ball at the end, and you punch it in front.
Yep, yep, yep.
but I don't like the head strap thing.
Okay.
And it's funny because Jazz got it for me because what I've been doing is I've been hanging like wiffle balls from the ceiling in the basement
Yeah.
with shoestring.
But that's just so good though. That's awesome.
A wiffle ball works really well, by the way, if you don't have like a nice elastic string and a specific like density ball for punching. But like a
Yeah.
wiffle ball, it stings a little bit
But
more.
but
But you're
not
not
too
supposed
much
to
and
hit
you
it
can
super hard.
right, exactly.
So you're just doing like reaction work. So I'll do mobility stuff and then reaction work, like mobile reaction boxing with the ball, basically, and a little bit of footwork with the ball. Sometimes I'll do some. I probably look so goofy, but I do some wrestling kind of shots under the ball.
Okay. Okay.
If that makes sense, like single leg shots and double leg shots. But it's you can think of it like getting down to a low lunge, walking through and standing up, like duck walking forward a little bit and then standing up.
Okay.
But
But
I really like that for my ankles and my legs.
oh, I like that. And that's in the morning, right?
Yeah, that's in the mornings. That's like my typical morning routine. If I get through that, if I get through like the floor mobility work and the reaction stuff, I'll move to weights. So I'll move to usually clubs or maces, and then if I'm feeling good with the clubs and maces, I might move to the heavier weights with the kettlebells. I would say.
Okay.
And that's
And
kind
so
of
what's your current is there a current aim or goal or anything with your fitness or just are you just daily maintenance kind of?
right now, it's just to increase my frequency and intensity, actually.
Okay.
So it's like dad strength with a ramp up of frequency intensity so I can possibly get into like a 2 day a week full strength program.
Okay. Okay. I like it.
But,
I like it.
but so I can transition easily. That's my aim is be able to transition easily or smoothly. It's not going to be super easy because if it was easy, it's probably not hard enough. But to be able to transition smoothly into like a 2 day a week strict strength program once I don't know, sometime spring, summer, I
Okay.
would say. Once
Just
basically it's been survive the 1 year of the baby.
yeah. Yeah.
Survive the 1 year of the baby and slowly work back to by the time he's one getting into a more regular strength routine again.
Okay. I like it. And I like just the aim of just 1 or 2 day like 2 days a week is like I think is a really good starting place. And in all honesty, do you really need to go that much higher than that when you're also doing like the mini workouts on the other days, you know?
Right. That's exactly it. Like most of the time I don't feel like I need that keeps me ready for almost anything.
Hmm.
Um but like I think my best shape, like peak shape for me is doing that and the addition of hiking often.
Right, right.
That's like peak shape for me. And I'm definitely not there right now, but I don't have to be there right now. I'm not gonna like good luck getting out right now for the hikes right now. As you know, we've tried to figure out times to go for hikes, but we're getting closer. We're
I
getting
think
closer. So
with 20
yeah,
degrees tomorrow, I don't know if that's gonna work.
yeah, I know, right? Yeah. But yeah, the weather and the fact that I like doing longer hikes, but most of the time with the hikes for the foreseeable future, I'm gonna have to be towing a little one sometimes.
Right,
Well, I might be able to do some solo hikes, but I want to be able to do hikes while taking care of a child easily.
right.
That's like the peak, I would say.
I think that's a great, awesome goal. That, and we've
Mhm.
talked about that before. I mean, just carrying all the time. A quick story about that because you're so this is your second kid, about to be one.
Mm.
When Charlie, who is my younger kid, he's 2 years old.
Right.
He's almost three. When he just hit two, I was like, oh man, it is hiking year. It is the year to hike, right? And this was like last year. And so
Because he was like walking well, right?
started walking well, and
Yeah.
like the year before I was carrying him in the baby carrier,
Right.
which is cool. You know, you feel good after that, but it can be rough. But anyway,
Yeah,
I was
it
super
gets rough faster with the baby carrier and an angry child, basically,
absolutely,
because you're
absolutely.
more tired and the child's angry.
So second year, super excited, got him walking, and we get like 1 mile into a 4 mile walk, and you know he wouldn't walk. We got this super nice carrier, right? And then he wouldn't go into like the $300 carrier that we got him. And so basically I had this, I was last year I was so pumped to get into hiking mode. And yeah, then it was carrying like that with
Yeah, like bear hug carrying him the rest of the way.
and with like a bag on, and it was, you know, it's super rough, and so
Yeah,
basically we couldn't do it last year, but we are excited this year to get back into hiking.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, like I want to be like I've gotten into situations where it's like I'd like to go more, but I'm either not in good enough shape to go more, or my child is going to be miserable, basically. You
Yeah,
know, like the only way you could have gone more is if you could have bear hugged that child for like 4 miles, basically. You know?
exactly, and I've done that, and if you do that with a 40 pound pack, it's like on your back, or let's say a 25 pound pack, like it's a
Mhm.
whole weight thing, and that's why I love the sandbag training.
Have you seen people? We should like market to people who are training for Disney World and Disneyland. By the way, have you seen like little funny clips on that at all?
No, no.
Because I have. I've seen funny clips. It's probably of fitness people because that's what I get suggested all the time. Training to get ready for Disneyland and like they'll be like doing carrying their kid on their shoulders and like different carries with the kids
It's
and
great.
like walking with like hands full in one side and juggling things or like going on a treadmill with a giant bag on one side.
Right, right. That's awesome. I love that.
Mm-hmm,
But it's
mm-hmm.
so true, right? I mean, like, don't you think that you should see that more often? But how many people don't want to go onto the treadmill at the gym with like a 40 pound like swimming bag on your right hand side? You know, you look crazy, but that's real life though.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I'm like as like functional as it is, how like directly functional as it is to the thing that you're doing. Um, just generally speaking, like offset load carrying is a really good skill to have for your overall health. Not just because like you're going to have to do those things, you know, if you want to be active with your family, but coincidentally, maybe because we evolved to move that way, like that does a lot of good for your skeleton and your spine and your erectors and all the different muscles that like people wouldn't use that much, you know?
The multi, what is it called? The multifundus, like the little muscle that goes down your spine.
Yeah, 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 yeah. There's a lot of fun, like little muscle names. I've lost a lot of them. Most of the ones I know, right, I'm going into deep right now are like feet ones,
Yeah.
basically.
The interesting fact that I just read about the offset carrying recently is that one of the biggest benefits is that you can do a significantly lighter weight using the offset to get more of a reaction or whatever, and that's because it's called the shear force of using
Right.
a load on one side is significantly higher than even carrying like two weights. So if you had like 100 pounds in your hand, like a 50 and a 50, or if you just had a 50, the sheer force on your spine is going to be more with just holding the 50 pounds than the 100 pounds. So that forces your body to adapt and turn on muscles and stuff that you don't normally use, like all the little muscles that you're talking about.
Or either that or get injured because you're not ready for it.
True. If like 50 pounds could be a lot for somebody, you know. Let's start
Right.
with 10 or 20, depending who you are.
Well, I think most jobs require you require to give you like a heads up or some kind of compensation or notice if you're going to be lifting 40 pounds or more on a regular basis,
Yes. Yep, 40
right?
pounds.
Yeah, we know this as trainers because we always saw those in the contract. I feel like,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
The pectineus is a leg muscle I was looking at recently.
And
your
that
inner thigh, your
I was gonna
pectineus.
say, I just did research on that. That goes up like into your groin area.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's a pretty common little muscle that gets hurt in the groin.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That's exactly it. That's
Yeah.
exactly it. Yeah. That's the muscle of the week this week, you guys, if you're listening. The muscle of the week is pectineus.
It's funny, my father-in-law, the reason I know this muscle is because my father-in-law 3 weeks ago, he's like, man, I've been hurting for like a month. I think it's this muscle. And he sent me a link of this pectineus. And then when anyone sends me something like that, I just go down like 20 articles about it, and
Right,
like
right.
figure it out. And it's a weird muscle and it actually gets injured a lot. It's like a very common muscle to get injured. It was surprising.
Yeah.
It's part of, I think, your adductor, a little bit like the adductor complex.
I think we probably went down the same rabbit hole as
Yeah.
parallel rabbit holes here. Yeah.
So is that something that you've worked on recently? Because I got some exercises. Mainly was kind of like similar to strengthening your adductor is what I learned from that. There was also some stretches. I wish I had it off the top of my head, but
Do you ever do Cossack squats?
I don't do them too often. Go ahead and explain that one.
Okay, I love Cossack squats, but I
Okay.
think I've been doing things to stretch my pectineus since I was younger
Okay.
in
Okay.
like soccer warm-ups. But a Cossack squat looks a lot like a Cossack dancer, if anybody knows what that looks like when they're in like the squat position, but one leg is straight out to the side.
Oh,
And they'll
yeah.
have like their arms crossed, for example.
Yeah.
So like think about going down into a squat position, but then kicking your leg out straight out to the side. Now, usually in the Cossack squat, like strength training environment, they won't go down and then kick their leg out like a dancer would because people can't handle that. That's too much. I
Right.
can't. I don't even think I could do that. But you basically just go down to you put that leg out as a kickstand. So it's kind of like a lateral squat with a kickstand.
Okay. Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So you put that. So for me, if I'm gonna do a Cossack squat with my left leg, my right leg's gonna be out on a straight diagonal direction for my body in a kickstand variation with the toes up,
Okay. Okay. I
and
like
then
it.
you squat back onto that one leg, and then you stand up, and usually you like switch sides. We're not sharing this, but like a Cossack squat. A Cossack squat would be
Nice.
similar to that, as I just showed Josh it now. That sounds about right, description wise.
I
Like
think
a lateral squat with a straight leg kickstand out to the side.
I think that's a good one because I now that you've done that, I'm like, okay, I've seen this exercise a bunch of times. So
Yeah, and
yeah,
I like it with assistance for people who are working on strengthening their pectineus.
I love it.
Because
No, it's
you
a
get
that's
like the TRX, and you
yeah.
only use it as much as possible, but you have the kickstand to help you with the balance. So then when you push those hips back, you get the stretch on both. You get stretch on the kickstand side, and you get strengthen on the like squatting side.
Ooh, tip of the week. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. Cossack squats. I love me some Cossack squats.
Nice.
They look fancy too when you get good at them.
Right. I was gonna say, have you ever gotten good at them?
Yeah, I've gotten pretty good at Cossack squats where I've started to load them, but I get scared. Like I don't want to pull a groin muscle,
Right.
you know?
I love that because how important is that? Like, and that fear though, this is like when fear is a good thing. Um,
Mhm.
and some people will debate on how much weight you should go for or whatever. But like, if you don't feel comfortable and you think your body is like, or if you've gotten hurt before or whatever, like I think that fear is a little bit higher
Yeah,
because
I mean, like maybe there's a progression that I'm not aware of that I could be using at that point that would help me with my fear, you know?
yeah, just to inch your way there.
Right, but the fear tells me that I probably don't feel confident enough in knowing what that progression is. I would say either
Yeah.
that or I don't feel I could maybe train it a little bit more, like I could prioritize it in my training more.
Right.
It's not usually a priority in my training. It's usually like an accessory in my training.
Usually the stuff we don't want to do is the stuff we probably should be doing,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah. Like I always think a lot of my hip and leg woes could be dramatically improved if I got better at doing the splits.
Oh, interesting.
Because I
Like a
think a lot
control.
of training that I would have to do for the splits, not just like flexibility, but like strengthening work. Because I see a lot of strength, like strengthening type, hip flexor strengthening and adductor strengthening type work,
Yeah,
uh, and low back strengthening type work. They have to do to like hold that posture in the right position and whatnot.
right. Which is
Yeah,
super tough.
yeah. So I feel like if I went towards something like that, I could kill a lot of birds with one stone. If
Okay.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. We were talking about meta skills last week. This is like a
Yeah.
meta movement.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like
Uh,
meta
com-
movements are
com-
really good.
Compound movement. Yeah.
Yeah, are really good aims to have,
Right. Right. I like
for
that.
like skill development because you think of the things that you need to improve with, and is there any like movement at a high level that's going to take you a while, and the pieces of it are going to fix a lot of your problems, basically, versus to picking something that's kind of anti some of your development. Like a lot of people want to run, for
Right.
fitness,
Yeah.
and it's good for a couple things, but for people who are sedentary, it's bad for a couple things too. If people push too hard, basically.
Yeah.
And it's easier to push hard in running, I would say, because the current training model doesn't really look into like I don't know, the rest of your body. A lot of training models for running are just like, can you run this far? Okay, if you can run this far, try running this far after this much time, running this far.
Right. Your running training program is, run 30 seconds the first day, run a minute the second day.
Yeah, distance and time, and that's like the main measurements of how to progress through a running program.
Sure,
Which
sure.
which I don't. It's like we did a Run for Your Life program before. I don't know if I ever told you about
Yeah, I
that.
think you did.
Yeah, I really like that for runners, and I kind of want to do that again at some point. Maybe when we get the new app rolling out,
Okay.
basically. But I think you can look at a lot more in terms of people's running progress than just their time and distance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, oh, and that's the other thing I've been working on lately.
Okay. Okay.
Actually, so Mark Bell, Mark Bell,
I've
the
heard of him.
Power Project.
Yeah.
You know how he's been running more? Have you followed that at all?
No. No.
Okay.
I
You've
kind of
been
haven't
taking
been
a
following.
hiatus. You've been cheating on me with no social media, John. Um,
It's
but he's been getting into running lately. Long
okay.
story short, and he's a big like power lifter, and he's as stiff as a board, basically.
Right.
And so he's trying to. You can see him trying to like loosen up and get like a smooth running pattern versus like what you would expect to see from a power lifter, which looks like Frankenstein trying to run, basically.
Does he do that while he's running, or is it a part of does he have like a movement prep before he starts running?
Yeah, so he's been interviewing. I love following podcasts. Like this is why other podcasts I like too. I like following, and this is why I like talking about this on our podcast. I like following the change that people go through
Hmm.
on their podcast a lot. And yeah, he was looking into trying something that was kind of like a meta movement. Like can I actually get myself to run? And like running is really freaking hard for me
Right.
to do well. But if I get myself to run in the right way, like by incorporating mobility and kind of like new training methods that are completely different than bodybuilding and powerlifting, like he's done before,
Yeah.
um, then maybe he can actually look like a runner and get into a running routine and maybe maintain some muscle as well. So he's kind of going through that journey, and he's been interviewing people who I really like in the running field
Okay.
when it comes to like foot health and when it comes to like spinal health, and when it comes to like the nervous system type patterns that need to be rebooted almost for
Like,
people to run well.
yeah, before you, even day of, and then also like long term.
Yeah, well, yeah, just in terms of like, I mean, people have a really hard time going through the fundamental developmental patterns that lead up to running, you
Sure.
know? And if they have a hard time in those fundamental patterns, it exacerbates the injuries and the problems they're going to have, and it cuts time short in terms of like how much better you recover from things. Like everything just
Hmm.
compounds basically if you don't have the fundamental development patterns.
Well, a lot of people don't understand if that a part of the kinetic chain is messed up, like the rest of it is messed up.
Yeah,
And one simple thing that like that say most people probably don't understand is that like if your left, like let's say your left leg is twisted, like when you're in that running position and your left leg is back and your right arm's forward, your body is essentially like twisted in your spine in different directions.
yeah,
That simple twist right there when you're fully extended is a tough movement,
right,
especially for people like you said who have problems or like have a little bit of an issue in their kinetic chain.
right,
Now you might be able to get away with it like when you run for 10 minutes or do it for a week, but then you if you run with that issue in your kinetic chain for 3 months, then like you were saying, it exacerbates all this other part of your kinetic chain, that's because everything is connected, and that's just because of say like your stupid ankle or like an issue with your chest or something like that, but that could affect your long distance running if you were trying to like run say like 10 miles a day or like a
right.
significant amount.
Or to get the most out of your running, which is just feeling better, over time, which is what a lot of people like to run for. They just feel better when they run.
Yeah, yeah, because
And
you
like,
don't necessarily like we don't promote it necessarily like for the best option for fat loss or the best option for overall health, but some people just love to go run, and it's cool to run through different places, and it's not something I love, but you can see that a ton of people out there love it. And like I shoot for a mile. Like if I can run a mile efficiently, then I'm pretty happy. And I focus on those little things though, like make sure that I'm running well, and it seems to work for me.
so I'm the mile strength coach as well, honestly.
Yeah.
Like if I can bust out a mile pretty easily. I've been doing like the nasal, like breathing, trying to nasal breathe and seeing if I could do a mile just nasal breathing, which is
Okay.
that's kind of hard right now, I would
Yeah.
say. But not nasal breathing, pretty simple. But I'd like to expand my territory in the area. This
Hmm.
is a later long term goal, but mountain biking and maybe going to the point where I could like run into town. I would
Cool.
say, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I could run into town easily. But these are like when I stop pursuing my strength goals as much, I'll start working on my cardio goals. Like I'm saving my cardio goals for later in life, but I'm low key getting ready for those now, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
All right. All right. Whatever works for you.
Yeah, I have like a 20-year plan, I feel like, with my like strength and strength training goals overall.
Dude, that's awesome. I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Um the topic we wanted to talk about today.
yes.
Top 3
The,
unconventional things,
that we
right?
that we do for our health.
Right? Okay, okay. The one of the things we were just talking about made me think about it,
Okay.
which is like I really like to work on foot health a lot. My foot health.
Yeah.
And it's mainly because I tore my two Achilles tendons.
Okay.
But the rehab from that, I learned so much about like my feet and and how my feet affect the rest of my body because I wasn't able to use my foot for so long, and then I had to get my gait patterns back and everything.
Right.
That like I'd never had knee pain before. Started having knee pain. Never had like certain kinds of hip pain before. Started having hip pain.
Yeah.
And I knew what had changed,
Hmm.
because I had that enough background to know like what parts of my muscles were getting activated and not and whatnot. So then I worked backwards and started working on the areas of my feet and my shins and my calves that were broken down basically from the Achilles rupture,
Right. Right.
and my knee pain went away and my hip pain went away, and then I just kept on pushing into it and doing those things more, and
Right.
I got better knee flexibility and strength than I had before the Achilles rupture, and
Right.
better hip flexibility and strength than I had before the Achilles rupture.
That's awesome because you were
Yeah.
so aware of it when you retrained your body for it that
Right.
you knew exactly what you were doing instead of it just being a natural thing like growing up and evolving into it.
Right. Exactly.
It's awesome.
Exactly.
Very cool.
But it makes such a huge difference, and then I started applying it to clients basically,
Yeah.
and yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
the kinetic, like fixing a part of your body fixes so much. And I think a lot of people play, and when you get older, play with this balance of like, do I just want to go to the gym and bench press, or do I want to like go and work on your feet? And like I think like little stories like yours are awesome and should be shared everywhere because it really can make your body so much better. And then when you retrain those patterns in the correct motion, like you were saying, a lot of times you'll get stronger than you've
Mm.
ever been before, and you'll be more mobile because you've created these patterns that are really purposeful to your human body.
Right, right. And I found that with when I was training for handstands as well.
Okay.
Like when I worked on, so like my other unconventional method was wrist work,
Okay. Okay.
basically. I'm working on like not just wrist strength, but you were talking about it a little bit earlier, like grip strength in different positions.
Yes.
But when there was a point when I was working on doing more handstands, and the thing that was limiting me the most was my wrists,
Okay.
basically.
Like the mobility of it or the strength?
A little bit of both. A little bit of both. Because there was a couple of positions that I was like, oh, I can turn my left hand counterclockwise this much, and my right hand I can only get like 20 degrees less than that, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So there was that, but then there was also I would start having a little bit of tendonitis on one hand when I worked on that handstand position and holding it like on the wall, for example.
Okay.
But then I noticed that the pressure in the fingers was only going into like a couple spots versus being evenly distributed
Oh,
into
okay.
into my fingers, and so that helped alleviate the elbow issues that I was having.
Right, right. Because if you're putting too much pressure on one side of your hand compared to the other side of your hand, one side, like one pattern of muscles is going to be underactive compared to the other side is going to be overactive, which
Right.
will put your elbow into a funky position, which will cause that elbow pain.
Right, exactly, exactly. But working on that more, like my shoulders got stronger, and like I would go and do shoulder exercises and upper back exercises, and they were so much easier.
Right. That's awesome, man. And that's like what you want to hear. I mean, like working on that little stuff makes a huge difference.
Right.
So that's your number one unconventional is, like would you say do more of that stuff or just make sure it's in your toolbox, right?
Yeah, I would say make sure it's in your toolbox and see if it will transfer to something that you're trying to improve already. Because you're going to get that reinforcement really quickly if you're onto something. Like
Right.
it's not a short period of time. Like a lot of things, funny enough, take a lot longer than people would expect. Like to get good at the squat, to get good at push-ups, to get good at pull-ups, to get good at like conventional exercises, you know?
Yeah, for sure. You just have to learn its skill as well as building the muscle and everything.
Right. So seeing your progress with those, unless you're like new, is usually takes a little while.
Hmm.
But like if you work on the little things that are holding you back in those other areas, you're gonna see progress in those areas pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
You
Cool.
know, and that feels really good.
Yeah.
So that can keep people going, basically.
Yeah, and it keeps people curious about their body, I think,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
like changing something like your wrist can improve your bench press, like things like that.
Right, right. Like in extremities too. Like people lose their weight from their center of gravity out. You know,
Yeah,
because your body is prioritizing your core body temperature. You
right.
know, and I just think there's something about like working on your body from your extremities in versus just working on from your core out, which is what a lot of people want to do, like ab exercises
Right.
and they want to do a lot of core stuff. But like, if you flip that page over a little bit, there's it's not like you shouldn't do core stuff. I'm not saying that, but like, go to the other side and work from like the extremities in every once in a while, and you'll see a lot of big changes happen.
Ooh, I like it. I like it. All right, cool. So all right, unconventional, work on the small stuff. That's
Yeah.
number one. Okay. I'm gonna do one of mine real quick.
Uh,
A little bit different direction. Is that so one thing I've been doing this for me a couple years now is that and it's because I don't know, I have a problem, is that I delete my social media apps after I use it. So like every day, and you can't delete Facebook off phones, by the way, like, or I would delete that. But so I delete Instagram every day, and I've gotten rid of all the rest of it. But so basically we're just talking about Instagram here, and
yeah.
LinkedIn. So I'll go on to it and I'll do my post, look for maybe a minute or two, and then I'll delete the app.
Yeah,
Um,
I wanted to talk to you about this. I'm so glad you brought this up.
okay.
Yeah. How did you get onto this and how long have you been doing that for?
About 2 years,
Yeah.
like I've been doing that for. And how did I get on it? Well, a couple of years ago, I just got into like I think it was pretty popular on the podcast, like to do like kind of like social media cleanses and stuff like that. And I don't really want to do a social media cleanse, and I'm going to kind of talk about that in a second too. But I want to be able to, like, some people will say, well, just turn off your notifications. Well, I did that, and I still found myself going to the app. And some people will just say, well, just don't go to the app. Well, I don't know, it doesn't work for me.
Well,
And
you
so
have to. It's like I feel like for some people, it's like having a candy jar, in front of them all day, and people are saying like, just don't eat the candy.
right.
You need to take the visual away, and you have to take the tactile away from your your thumbs that actually remember where the hell the app is without you even having to think about it.
Yeah. And but I've just been doing it for a couple of years, and I find that it's awesome. And so what has happened from it is that I've completely gotten rid of Twitter. I've completely gotten rid of, like all the other little things like Snapchat and stuff like that. So I pretty much only use Instagram, and I do that. I'll delete it. And then just to go a little bit further, so I've been doing that for 2 years, but I've been kind of doing this unintentional like thing over the past 6 months that I just realized is that ever since I left work, I basically don't listen to podcasts and don't listen to audiobooks, and I've never been into the news or anything. So besides those like few minutes that I'm on Instagram and just see, it's basically trash anyway when I'm on that. Like I'm not seeing anything. All right.
Yeah, yeah. Because you were listening mostly during your commute, right?
Well, yes and no. So I had 3 hours of commute that I would listen to, but my job for pretty much 7 out of the 8 hours, I was by myself, and so I
Mhm.
would listen to podcasts.
That would be like your background music going.
I had them in my ears all day, every day.
Yep, 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 yep.
And so So, and I did that for almost 5 years, I would say, nonstop. And so it was a ton of information. I didn't listen to, well, anyway, so about 6 months ago, when I left work, I don't listen anymore. And this is what I've noticed is that my original thought has like tripled,
Yeah.
like because you are only like I have all this information that like basically that I've learned over the past 5 years in books and podcasts. Well, I don't know if that's real or what, but whatever, you still learn stuff from it. And now it's just like I'm using all that information and coming up with these new things, and I'm not processing all this other like information. And it's opened up me to like I'm like we talked about last week, how I'm studying for the corrective exercise specialist, like and that flow that's really going, it's really working really well. And so that's my unconventional thing that I'm doing right now, is that like just don't listen to any information, except the Neat Athlete podcast,
Turn off this podcast right now.
right now. But I think you have to do both, right? You have to learn, and then you have to take like a break to kind of get your own original thoughts.
Yeah, you gotta kind of gather information and then you gotta synthesize. That's my
Yeah.
grad school professors always said. You have to synthesize. That's mastery. Isn't this is it happens when you synthesize the information that you've gathered, not just like gather information.
And it's interesting because you have your master's. So one big difference between us is that like you have your master's degree, right? And I went to school for like a year, and I wouldn't even count that as real college, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of my learning has been in my past like six or so years, since I just like went on to this like learning whatever adventure.
Phase of life. Yeah.
And so it's like, and I really did it myself, like trying to learn stuff myself. And I think that's a big difference. And you've had all these years to process it, and I like just am getting out of my processing, like I'm just starting to process it.
Yeah.
It's super fun to chat about it. But anyway, that's an unconventional thing that I think everyone might just want to try
Yeah.
uh for a
And I
bit.
like how, like I think it's important to understand like it's not like people are bad for being on social media so much or being on things so much, but it can be there. There's always like a capacity that people have, where they start getting diminishing returns for their time and energy, where it starts or the purpose of what you're doing isn't has changed or has morphed,
Yeah.
without you being completely aware of it. And I think that happens a lot. And like when people get into like this information gathering mode, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Does that make sense?
A little bit. I mean, you definitely get
Get
it.
caught
It's
on
like
the
separate
path
notes.
and you go down a rabbit hole, and people know like they'll start looking up one thing and then like 40 minutes later they'll be doing something completely different than what they started with,
Right. Right. Okay.
right? And that's typical,
Yeah.
I would say. And the more that happens, the more you feel like your time isn't being used wisely, right?
I love it. Yeah. Very cool.
So that's a good indicator. It's not like the only thing, but it's a good indicator of the fact that like taking a break and actually trying to synthesize that information or use that information that you've gathered, and it's back there. It just needs to be cued in. Like you're not going to be able to regurgitate all the things that you've seen, but
Mm,
you need to be cued into action by your environment, usually to use that information or to take that information into an action.
I like that. And I think maybe I'm just speaking personally, is that my tendency is you consume too much, and you really do need to be able to process it. And if you never take that time to process anything, everything we're taking in is just kind of in one ear and out the other ear.
Right, right.
All right.
Because eventually it will go away, and then you won't really use that information for anything useful,
Right.
basically. Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
We got two more.
Okay. Unconventional. I mean, is this obvious if I talk about like our micro workouts, basically?
Well, why don't we just say that's both of our second ones because I know
Yeah.
that's on my list, but let's just talk about it.
Yeah, okay, okay. Because like the micro workouts, I feel like me and you talk about it a lot, but I don't think we've talked about it a ton on the podcast, or not enough, not enough. But just doing little movement snacks throughout the day is sometimes what I call them.
Yeah.
And I think I learned the importance of it even before I got injured. But like when I was training people who have been injured,
Okay.
and like maybe not seeing them as frequently as I need to see them. So then if we interjected like some movement snacks during their week,
Yeah.
when I saw them, they would retain the information that they needed to progress a little bit more easily,
Yeah.
because maybe we weren't getting practice sessions in frequently enough for them to progress uh, very well. So having a movement snack or doing a micro workout, like doing a couple things, not even enough to get you like burning a bunch of calories or really tired or anything like that. More like skill development work,
Sure. Yeah.
like
Absolutely.
piano practice, but like the easiest piano practice possible because you only like the dosage you need to actually get benefit from like a movement snack is so low. It's just that you need a frequency like of like almost every 24 to 48 hours, basically, for it to really to stick enough to the next practice session of 24 to 48 hours later.
Right. So like doing 10 push-ups every single day would equal, whatever, 70 push-ups at the end of the week. But
Mm.
you do just a little bit of it every day, you're going to build the skill of it. So
Hmm.
you're going to become
And
more.
that's for someone who could probably do 20 push-ups every day,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But 20 would be hard, So like 10 is like something that's like 50% of what a normal set would look like might be a good recommendation, you
Okay.
know?
Yeah. Because you don't want something that you can get hurt from.
Right.
Right.
50% or less effort, I would say.
Right. Because and let's talk about these movement snacks. So when you do a little bit mobility, but you can also do these movement snacks for strength training or anything like that. And
Right.
and so like let's would be like an example. Like I would like to do a movement snack in the morning that's like mobility
Hmm.
mixed with some maybe you do a mobility. All right, that's like 3 minutes at
Right.
8 a.m.
Right, right.
And then at 10 a.m. or like say or something like that, you do 3 minutes of like an activation. So
Hmm.
whatever that means to you, for that would prep you for this next exercise. So
And like some kind of hold, like a glute bridge hold or a plank hold.
let's say we're doing a deadlift. So and we'll do a glute bridge hold. So
Yeah,
that
there you go.
there's no it's very low barrier. It's not going to hurt you or anything like that, right?
Right.
Then your next movement snack, maybe we want to go a little bit more in the movement hold, but let's just say you could go right to like in my instance, it would be a barbell deadlift, right?
Mhm.
So, and I know this is different for everybody, right?
Mhm.
So let's say we go from that so mobility activation, and then we go over to the barbell deadlift. Now I want to be at 50% or maybe even less here,
Yeah,
right?
because the deadlift, your max is so high that like working up to that max, a lot of times be like what you're doing, like the bar and a plate on each side or something like that, right? Like 135 when your max is closer to 400.
Something like that, right?
Yeah.
And then just do that, and then maybe an hour, like if you can do 5 more minutes in an hour, maybe do the same weight. And I probably wouldn't go up even that much from there, but you do that again in that one day, like a couple minutes for 5 or 6 times, then
Hmm.
all of a sudden you have 30 reps of a deadlift at minimal, at minimal weight, and you get the volume in. And you can it's so fun to talk about this because you can program it a million different ways.
Right. Right. But the point is that You don't need to do very much, basically, but doing a little bit often makes a huge difference, which is cliche, but it applies to like strength and like I don't even know if I would call it completely strength training. You know, like when people refer to this as strength, but like movement training, like it applies to healthy movement.
What could we call it? So definitely healthy movement training. It's activating your body throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
What you
Skill,
know,
it's skill development for a lot of people. Like a deadlift and a hinge pattern is a lot of skill. You know,
sure, sure. And every day you can kind of try and activate more muscles, like just using that same lift and maybe doing pauses or whatever, but just
all
doing,
you can use all different techniques. Yeah,
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 yeah. I think of it like, yeah, I guess movement would be the most general term because we're not just the focus. The end result is not strength per se.
right.
You know, that's more of like a side effect. The end result is like improved movement in different ranges of motion with strength.
Yeah. One thing that I loved about about the micro workouts when I was in the corporate world is that it gave me energy. It gave me like these short bursts of energy.
Right. Yeah.
You hear that a lot from people?
Right. So like not only does getting like a little bit of movement in that's not like a typical workout, but
Yeah.
not only does that help with your movement skills and your strength skills and everything else we were talking about, but you're going to get like that boost from the adrenaline a little bit because you're going to have to apply focus to make sure you get the most out of that time.
Yep. Exactly.
And so you're basically training your brain to get into a focused state more quickly.
Right. Right.
And the
Very
more
true.
often you do that, the more you can transfer that skill. And then you not only that, but you build the capacity for that skill while you're doing it as well. So like you can do it more often and you can do more of it the more you practice that type of strength work, I would say.
Okay. I like it. Now both of us have talked about you want to go to a 2-day full body strength workout. Right now I'm doing like a 3-day strength workout with micro workouts in between. Now, why wouldn't you just do micro workouts forever? Could you do micro workouts forever? Or, why are we focusing on right now on different things?
Hmm. Okay, so I think you could do micro workouts forever, um, in a lot of different like fields of movement. I guess there are a lot of different categories of movement. I think you could do micro workouts forever, and you might just need to. You're going to need to plan a little bit better to make sure that the exercise selection focuses on your specific needs.
Yeah.
You know,
Like, could you run fat loss through micro workouts? Could you run strength through micro workouts? Or is this more focused on things like what we were saying, like productivity, energy, and just movement?
you know, it shows up more in what you just said, like productivity, energy, and movement. Like it's that's kind of like the gateway drug,
Right, right.
I would say.
Yeah.
That's the thing that like gets you to do it, I would say, because you have like a time or an energy issue with having a full program.
Okay.
A stereotypical full program.
Right.
You um, but yeah, I think you can honestly because the big limiting factor I would say is like how hard do you want to go into a specific movement category, or do you want to just be a generalist? Because if you want to be a generalist, I think it's actually might be the one of the top strategies to being a good generalist. You know,
Yeah.
is a micro workout strategy. I think it's up there in terms of being a top generalist. Like
Yeah.
that's pretty much what our body evolved to do. So it would be. ready to do the things that we need to do.
Right. And we are both focusing on a short program to jump back into, because what I like about the micro workouts is that that's kind of your baseline, and then
Yeah,
you can jump into like a 90-day program to kind of up your baseline a little bit. And which is why we are, that's my personal reason why I'm doing like these 3-day a week workouts. By the way, my workouts are only like 30 minutes anyway, or like 25 minutes, so they're not like long workouts.
yeah.
um but what we were saying earlier is that can you do fat loss, can you do strength training? And I'll tell you 100% from experience, the answer to that is yes.
Yeah.
But it does depend on how much. Can you do it with like 3 5 minute micro doses a day? Maybe not, like unless you're like focusing on one thing.
You got to
But
be able, I think the less time you commit to it, the more you have to be able to, the more you have to be good at recovering well. And like, I kind of put like nutrition in the recovery bank at the, because like the nutrition helps you recover well. So if you're not eating well, you're not going to recover well.
yeah,
You know, so you need to be recovering really well. Basically, the less time you put into it,
yeah,
or you need to be able to handle a higher intensity, which you still need to recover really well from. You
yeah.
know, so your recovery has to be like on point, and then you can maybe put in more high intensity work with it and keep the time low, I would
True,
say.
true.
But that's assuming recovery is on point, which for most people it is not.
And well, so you can just like, if you're doing the microdoses for a very specific adaptation like fat loss or strength building or whatever you want to do, then you just, that's what you have to do. You have to focus your recovery, nutrition, etc. on that specific adaptation, and
Right.
you need to be on point. You need to be
Right.
more on point to make a big change. And so that's why I do think you can make big changes on those micro workouts, but you really need to be a little bit more on point.
You
But that's
know, and I like that micro workouts kind of have that governor a little bit, because I really don't want to see people make huge changes quickly,
right.
because like unless they're telling me they don't care if they bounce back, like they legit don't care if they gain all the weight back and feel like shit afterwards,
Yeah.
you know, then like I'm going to be trying to help take care of their future self a little bit by giving them a a lower load that's going to get them there slower, but still when they need it, you know?
That's the secret, is those small doses get you more interested, get you more curious about your body. It gets you more focused on your specific adaptations. And if everyone had the knowledge of a lot of us trainers about these specific adaptations, everyone can be doing a lot less work and be making a lot more bigger changes with their body.
Win-win. You can have both. You can have, you know,
You
it's like,
can.
you want this one or this one? I want both. I want both of them.
Always, always.
Yeah. Okay, so now number three, and then we'll finish out with that. Unconventional methods and things we do that people may not usually do.
Oh, one I like that I think is for, I'll just go, unless you have yours, I'll go.
No, I don't have it yet. Yeah.
So the three is using your vices or your lows as kind of like your, we talked about this and it might have been in the episode that we didn't release, which I'm
Mhm.
hoping is that like is the like your barriers. um
Yeah.
and like so like say you have a vice, say, so when I used to drink, so I used to drink like 7 years ago, like and your vice is drinking, and but you're into working out, you're into fitness, right? Well, you, if you're drinking, maybe your vice like goes a little too hard that week, you're gonna see your fitness drop. Maybe you're gonna miss the gym a little bit, maybe your strength is down, maybe you notice, and you have to be aware, maybe you notice that you're eating a little bit worse like in the morning and at night, like due to like side effects of the drinking.
I get that pizza to soak up the alcohol afterwards.
Things like that. And you can use smoking cigarettes and things like that in the same way of, like, say if you do want to continue smoking, I'm not saying like you should smoke cigarettes or anything like that, but like, if you do, then like say if your next run or your next workout, like you're really struggling, like your lungs are struggling, then maybe you've been smoking too many cigarettes, and maybe just cut it back a little bit. I think we all have vices, and maybe you shouldn't fight them, maybe you can use them, maybe it's a little bit of a balance of both. But
Mm.
I think that's an unconventional thing that I use them as kind of like a barrier for me. And I know that if like I'm feeling a little low or my body's off, then my vices have kind of like taken a little bit too much control.
You know, the Alcoholics Anonymous says the first step is admitting you have a problem,
Yes, I do know.
right? And I think a lot of people have like, and I'm not trying to like I have vices of my own, but a lot of people will not compare those or think about those as much when they're trying to improve their health. As obvious as that sounds, it may pop up for a little bit and then it goes to the back, to the back of the brain bus. I feel like for a lot of people when they're working on their health, because
Yes.
it's too much almost to work on that and your health,
Right.
you know.
Right.
But I do think that when you work on your health, seeing how your vices, like paying attention to how your vices improve, can be really reinforcing. Like when I talk about like people needing wins, like
Yep.
a big key to habit formation is getting that dopamine hit, you know, from your brain, what
Yeah.
they call like endogenously versus exogenously, which would be like from a drug or usually from a vice. A vice you're getting that dopamine hit from too, you
Okay.
know. And so what you're hoping can happen is that you can replace a little bit where you were getting dopamine from outside into inside,
Hmm.
you know?
You're balancing your dopamine level, like you're getting so you're balancing your dopamine levels. Like if your alcohol or whatever is too high, then you need to get that down, because your fitness, if it goes to, if that's out of balance,
Mm-hmm.
then your fitness will go down and your vice will take over. Or maybe you like having a vice and it's okay, and your fitness is too high and you're like, man, I'm not having as much fun, and you gotta, like, get that back into the middle.
Yeah, like I've seen like the bodybuilding types like go way too hard, basically, and like lose a bunch of friends and whatnot, and only like hang out with bodybuilder types, and then it goes, and like maybe that's what they want to do, and that's their own thing, I would say. So maybe it's not a bad thing, but you're definitely going to, I don't know, if you want to see change, that's the way you'll usually see change happen. Say it that way.
Right.
All right, so number three for me. I mean, I'm all about like making your environment remind you, and you are too. So this kind of goes to our micro workouts, but I really love, and this is a weird thing that I do. I really love like strategically placing exercise equipment, or like, or strategically almost like in my mind mapping out like where I can do different exercises in places.
Okay. Okay.
When I go there, most of the time it's just my house because I'm most of the time at home. But
Right.
like I have like kettlebells in weird places in my house. You've seen it. We have like the pull-up bar over one of the doorways, like not the kind of pull-up bar that attaches into the doorway. This is like we got it drilled into the wall there, like it's not gonna move, kind of thing.
Right, right. Yeah. Oh, it's a serious one, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And like there's clubs outside, so like it looks like if you're gonna break into our house, you're gonna get hit with a giant mace or club or something like that.
Do you keep a kettlebell in the oven so when you turn it on, you got to take it out
You
before?
know, it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad it would have to be too big of a kettlebell for all my strength, though. We
Right.
need we need a smaller kettlebell. But my dumb ass would probably like turn on the oven with the kettlebell in there. We
Oh,
don't
yeah.
need pans in the oven for the same reason.
Right. Because that happens all the time. Yeah.
Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. Yeah, but I
Terrible
really
idea,
love
by the way. Don't put any kettlebells in the oven. That was a horrible
yeah.
idea.
Or don't put plastic cutting boards in the oven, by the way.
Sounds like someone put a pizza on a plastic cutting board in the
I don't
oven.
remember what it was, but it was bad. Well, I forgot. I forgot the plastic cut. I put the hot thing on top of the plastic cutting board
Yeah.
on the counter, but then I was like, I need to heat the hot thing back up. So I put the hot thing back in the oven, but the plastic cutting board I didn't notice had like melted and gotten stuck on the hot thing. So when I put the hot thing back in, I didn't notice the plastic cutting board on the bottom of it
Oof.
in the oven.
I'm sure that was a mess.
Oh, it was gross. Don't do it. Don't do
Yeah,
it.
don't do that.
PSA.
Don't do that.
Yeah, but like planting, like I feel like Johnny Appleseed. I'm like planting little exercise habits throughout the house and whatnot.
And probably for a beginner, that would be super helpful, like as reminders and whatnot for them to start.
Yeah,
It's
like
awesome.
I'm a big fan of like making the environment remind you about what to do.
And that's a
Even
great,
but I'm okay. I think that's a big part of me being okay with looking crazy.
right?
You know,
Yeah.
like I do think that's a big barrier for people with stuff like that. You know, they don't want to be like the weird kettlebell toting person.
I'm the only one at the driving range doing a low lunge to twist, like warming up on the driving range with 100 people there. So I get, feeling uncomfortable around a bunch of people.
Right, exactly, exactly. But we're gonna make it normal. We're gonna make it normal.
That's what I try.
I really don't care though, even if it isn't. I'm really trying to make it normal for other people who do care, honestly. But like, I have no. It's a problem sometimes how little I give.
Well, that what I liked about that golf course thing is that I've had like 3 or 4 people come up to me and ask me like, "Hey, what kind of stretches are you doing?" So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, see, there you go. Exactly. Yeah.
so
Spreading the word. Spreading the word.
exactly because we all know we need to do it. So why don't we just do it?
Hmm. Hmm. I do think fitness has become less kooky in our lifetime. You know, less dorky, less like I don't know. I feel like when we were young, like fitness, you think of like 80s, 90s fitness,
Mhm.
um, being kind of I don't know, like didn't seem to have much depth. If I look back on it now in terms of the knowledge behind the choices and like how things are done in terms of like health and fitness, I don't really think a lot of those recommendations and like pop fitness back then was very good at that. I think it was mostly consumer based, not really like health based, if that
Yep,
makes sense. And it's
absolutely.
still very consumer based now, but like even in pop fitness, I'm seeing good trends, you know?
Yeah. Because
So,
there's so many pros out there now at fitness is that you do have to be kind of really good at your game and you need to give the real information and not just be not just sell supplements and things like that to people.
right.
I think that's been a big change. But all right, just for some perspective here, like, all right, remember I've been in the corporate world for like 8 years, right? Like working in IT. And say so most of those jobs, say there's 15 people on my team, me and maybe 2 other guys work out.
Mhm.
And the rest of the people do things like eat fast food every day, just have never exercised in their life. like that exists out there, like very much so, to the point where I think sometimes you and I need to see that other perspective. And I really need to think about that a lot, like where like there's people out there who literally have never been in a gym, who I mean I've eaten fast food under 5 times in the past 5 years. And some people do that like in within 3 days they eat fast food 5 times. So like there's definitely still a huge gap for us fitness people to fill out there.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't worry about like when people ask me like is something going to take your job, like some insert blank technology or idea or equipment or whatever,
yeah,
something going to take like
ChatGPT.
trainers jobs or whatnot. I'm like, man, there's so much demand. It's just like connecting the will to the way. You know, that's pretty much like I don't think I wish it was that easy. I
Yeah.
wish something would come along and like fix a lot of those things.
Okay, but a computer can't train somebody to not eat fast food twice a day. Like
So
a
many,
human.
there's so many different things that you could mention as an example that we could have like multiple podcasts on,
Yeah.
just listing out basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the nuances with all of it as
Yeah.
well, you know?
Well, we have lots of podcasts coming, so
Yeah, plenty of content to talk about. Yeah, yeah, I
all right, man. Well, anything else? Or are we gonna wrap up?
think that's good. I think that's good.
All right, cool. Well, I'll
All right.
talk to you later, Mike, and talk to everybody else later too.
Deuces.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.